Welcome to the sixth session of Open Minds, and we are very delighted to have all of you over here. And it is a very, very interesting topic that we have today, which all of you are aware of, which is the changes in consumer behavior and how it's going to impact the FMCG sector. And today we have with us Mr. Kannan Sitaram, who's the right person to talk to all of us about what's happening in the FMCG sector, the changes in the consumer behavior, primarily because he has worked with large companies like Ponds, Hindustan Lever, Unilever, and Dabur. And now he's working with very small and startup companies, people who have lots of dreams about how things are going to happen in the FMCG sector tomorrow. So he is a person who has experience of both these sectors, and I'm sure it will be a very interesting talk. Besides his professional thing, Kannan Sitaram is a graduate from IIT and also a postgraduate from IIM Ahmedabad, and that's where I met him way back in 1979. And other interesting thing is that this format that we are having at Open Minds, it's not a webinar where it's only one-sided conversation and you type in your questions, but it's going to be a dialogue between the speaker and all of us. And I would request that just for clarity, if you can type your questions, Sitaram can take it up one by one. And if your question is being answered, you can unmute yourself and participate in the discussion. Anybody else also can unmute themselves in case they have any points of view. So that's the slightly hygiene part of thing which I thought I'll clarify. But today I'm extremely delighted that this topic has generated a lot of interest amongst people from different sectors, and people who have registered for this seminar come from companies like Abbott, ITC, Reckitt Benckiser, Zydus, Haldirams, Ferrero, Purefit, Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata Smart Foods, Nestle, Pepe Jeans, and Amazon, and even new companies like Licious, Earthy Joy, Tangy Turmeric, Forbidden Foods, and of course a large number of my friends from IIM Ahmedabad, from IIM Indore, NMIS, Infosys, and Flame. These are the even academic institutions which are being represented today in this talk. So, and also of course a large number of my colleagues from Tempest Advertising. So thank you very much for being part of Open Minds session 6. And I would like to now hand over to Sitaram. Sitaram, all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Turab. Thanks for inviting me to speak today. So the plan that I had was to maybe speak for about 15-20 minutes. And then as Turab suggested, we can discuss questions, opinions, comments, observations, etc., etc. So we've been in this whole lockdown phase for something like 6 weeks and counting. And during this phase itself, we're seeing consumer behavior changing. When we entered the lockdown, obviously there was a sense of panic, and people just went on buying stuff. Huge worries about obviously food. And therefore, there was what we call pantry loading. People bought enough stuff to last them or whatever they felt was going to be the duration of the lockdown. But fairly quickly, we found that behavior changing. And there has been a sort of a sense that, look, we're not going to starve. We're not going to be deprived of daily essentials. And there is a sense of acceptance that, while obviously things are not what they used to be, but at least there isn't a huge amount of discomfort as far as food is concerned. What we're talking about today is not about really what has been happening over the last few weeks, but how all that has been, all that we're experiencing, plus also all that we are reading and all that we are watching, how is that changing our psyche as consumers? And really, of course, consumer psyche, consumer behavior is in constant change. It's been changing ever since people started becoming consumers in a significant way, consumers of packaged products and services. But what we're talking about is really not incremental or gradual change. It is a step change in the consumer psyche that all of us in the industry believe is already started to happen. So I want to talk about that first. Having done that, I want to explore how those changes in the psyche are getting reflected in changed attitudes and potentially in behaviors as well. And having spent a little time talking about that, I then want to go on to saying what kind of consumption patterns will emerge over the next few months in the FMCG area. So it's really 3 steps to what I wanted to cover. So talking first about the whole area of the consumer psyche, there is obviously a short-term thing, and then there is the longer-term piece. So the shorter-term piece, as I said, was a lot to do with uncertainty about will the product be available or will a service be available. But it's also been about a lot of frustration about low human connect, about having to manage much more than we had to manage earlier. We managed work, or we managed home, or we did a both. But now we are having to manage a lot more of home, work, family. And there is obviously, while we are doing it, but there is heightened levels of frustration that I'm hearing from everybody. There is also deprivation of alcohol. We have seen the queues over the last few days, deprivation from cigarettes, from your favorite brands, from your favorite TV serials. So lots of things that we are seriously missing about the way life used to be. And then there is a whole sense of monotony and boredom. No holidays. This is the holiday time for families. No breaks to get out to a movie or to get to a restaurant. And once we see this whole thing lifting, all of this is going to mean that there is going to be a period of binge shopping, binge partying. There'll be a sort of almost like a celebration that it is over. Now, all of that, some of it is going to carry forward into the future, but there are going to be, I think, longer-term issues which are going to shape the way consumers behave, the way consumers buy. And I'm really calling out 2 big issues. One is clearly financial insecurity. We've already seen how migrant labor has been heading back home, lost jobs, lost livelihoods, lost means of generating income, feel they have been not looked after. But that's one part of the whole job loss scene. We are also hearing, in a small way at this point in time, but I think the murmurs will get louder, about job loss happening with white-collar people as well. It's already started happening in India. We heard a couple of days back about cult-fit laying off people. I've spotted letters from Airbnb to their staff talking about job losses globally. And I think these are things which are going to keep happening in India on a larger scale. Because the fact is the economy is going to take time to recover. And companies are going to say, we are kind of staffed for 100% capacity when our revenues are going to be 50% or 60%. So people that can be replaced a few months later are going to find that their jobs are not there anymore. Apart from that, there are financial insecurities caused by the fact that the share market has crashed, by all the news about failing NBFCs, failing banks, about mutual funds not being able to honor redemption requests. So that's one big tranche of insecurities around my financial comfort going forward. This is not something that we were seriously thinking about a few months back, but I think across a whole lot of us, this is going to be very strong. The other big one, obviously, is health insecurity. We are hearing so much about this COVID creature, all the different ways in which it is attacking us, all the insidious ways in which it is sort of creeping into our lives. And that makes us very, very insecure. And that insecurity for us, for our families, is going to come deeply into our attitudes and to our behavior. So I try to understand, therefore, in this kind of a situation, what is on people's mind in terms of what kind of thoughts are they exploring. And Google had sent out a report some time back, and I wanted to share some of what they had to say, actually, if I can get the screen share to work.
Click the share button.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
So what are we searching for on Google? And as I said, there are many things which are going on, but for our conversation today, I picked out a few slides from what they had sent out. And it's interesting. There is a huge uptick in searches for solutions to community.
Where is the audio?
Thanks for the sound effects, guys. There is a huge uptick in searches for immunity building solutions. Obviously, people are concerned and they're looking for stuff which is going to help them. Vitamin C, which everybody knows is a big immunity builder, is top of the list, but also things like Giloy, which is used extensively in Ayurveda. And Kadas and many others are coming up as high on people's searches. The second thing people are searching for is opportunity to earn money. So work from home jobs, internships, way to reskill, to upskill, all these are coming up in significant ways as searches that people are concerned about. EduTech is trending. One is, of course, as I said earlier, it's about skilling, upskilling. But even in a larger way, clearly, we want to continue learning even when we are deprived of our ability to step out. We also want to look for opportunities to teach from home. And this is covering both adults and kids. We all know that kids have already started online classes. But interestingly, even things which were not part of the curriculum are now coming online. For example, we have a company called Magic Crate, which used to sell educational toys, used to get a kit every month. So a few days back now, they put a whole lot of content on their website. And for a fee, you can access high quality content, which is about English, or it could be about learning music at the Shankar Mahadevan Academy of Music or the Furtado School of Music. So a whole lot of things that people want to learn, they're not able to learn, and is starting to get made available online. Of course, we're also very much concerned about health and increasingly about fitness, but fitness from home. I mean, I guess many of us have also experienced that there are a whole lot of yoga classes going online. But I think the biggest move has been CultFit. They gave their app for free, and they're getting lakhs or maybe even millions logging in for their sessions, actually. So this is very interesting. One, of course, that we are finding that we can be fit through an app. But it's also very interesting when you look at it from the point of view of the service provider. Because earlier they were kind of into the peak hours for fitness in India. So you would have the peak hours being the mornings before people headed out to work, or in the evenings. But interestingly, what's happening with things like yoga is that it's got a global franchise. So we find that some people are now exploring how they can market an India-based yoga service to people in Singapore or Dubai or London. And therefore, actually, this is not only about transiting to a different model, but it's also about offering that model and monetizing it in many more countries. Health, as I said, is a concern, but we don't want to rush to a clinic or a hospital, even if we feel unwell. And we want the doctor to actually come home. Fortunately, the government actually moved very fast on this and made video consulting legal in this country. And that has meant that, at least for the first cut opinion, we don't want to go to a clinic or a hospital. We want to do a video consultation. And then only if then we really feel that we need to meet a doctor face to face, are we interested in going out there. Similarly, for I think all kinds of other diagnostics, it'll be the diagnostic service coming home, it looks like, rather than us having to go out there. But again, it shows you where the mind is. So these are some of the big changes in behavior, but there are others as well. And I think the one that I'm seeing from an FMCG perspective, which I think is really, really big, is this whole thing, what I'm calling from home at home. I think lots more stuff will happen from where we live. Earlier, we used to head out to do things. I think now things will come to us either physically or online. It's work. All of us are working from home, and that has gone off actually quite well. And I think we can already hear of many companies which are saying this looks like something which is a more permanent arrangements. We see actually many employees welcoming it. They're going to save time, and they can also do other things like caring for babies, caring for seniors, and so on while attending to their work. Education, we talked about that. Shopping is going to be way, way more online. I can't think of women and men heading out to salons for their beauty requirements. Health, we talked about fitness, entertainment. I mean, going to a movie theater, unless the movie theater just completely remodels that experience, is going to be a no-no for quite some time. But equally, things like socializing. I mean, going to a restaurant or a pub to meet friends is going to take a backseat. And we're going to welcome people to our homes much more. And so lots more things are going to happen from home and at home. The other piece is about conserving money. I talked about the whole financial security worry. And that's going to mean that we're going to save money. We're going to defer big ticket items. So if you were thinking of buying a car, it's highly likely you say, let's come back to that after a year once I know what's happening to my job, what's happening to a stock market, etc., etc. And the second piece is that we're going to critically examine all that we buy. Are they what we really need? Or is it what we just want? And earlier, I think as consumers, especially consumers in the somewhat more affluent sections of Indian society, we had started moving from needs to wants. And I think that is going to reverse in a significant way. And the focus will be on simplifying your requirements, simplifying your life, and saying, look, do we really need that? Hygiene and physical health are going to gain ascendance. Hygiene, obviously, we're already sanitizing, washing, everybody has told us. And I think that's going to go wider, deeper, more frequent. Yeah. And the other thing which I'm noticing during this period, I do not know whether it's going to continue in the future, is this whole focus around collaboration. I'm certainly seeing this in the business world. I find that people are sharing information much more easily. As Turab said in his introduction, I work for a venture capital fund. We deal with a lot of young companies. And really, they've been struggling as compared to the bigger companies. So I've been speaking to some of the bigger companies, trying to get from them what the experience has been. And it's interesting that they've been very open, very sharing. I also find that sharing is happening where we live. So like the big thing is, when is Big Basket offering delivery? So as soon as somebody notices that Big Basket is back in action for where we live, it's being shared on our community WhatsApp group. And then everybody is rushing out to their devices to book stuff on Big Basket. And not just Big Basket, a whole lot of other things. There's a whole lot of farm-to-home activity going on because farmers are growing all kinds of fruits and veg stuff, are not able to get access to a market. And then people are helping them find access. So this is an interesting development at this point in time. Are we going to use devices like WhatsApp and other social media just to collaborate much more than what we have? And what does that mean for consumption behavior? I think is an interesting question. Perhaps we can discuss that later on. So the question is, all of this is sort of behavior at a larger level. What does this mean for consumption? So again, I was on this webinar run by Bain Consulting. And this was a global webinar, so the data was all global. And obviously, India, fortunately, is well behind the COVID curve compared to other countries. But I still thought that it made interesting reading for all of us. This is showing 3 economies, China, the US, and the Euro economy. And it's saying that across different product categories, what was the kind of sales uplift that was observed during the period of lockdown? And obviously, when you mean lockdown, it has nowhere been as tough as what we have experienced in India. It has all been various stages, but still, it's a useful reference point, I think. So hygiene obviously was the standout. In China, apparently, sales just went up 200%. But even in other economies, we saw clear, big changes in consumption of hygiene products. Personal care products, which will include things like some hygiene products, I'm guessing, like soaps and toothpaste and shampoos and things of that kind, also trended up. Home care products trended up. Fresh food did. And this is interesting because these are not economies, especially the Western economies, are much more used to buying stuff which is packaged and not really seriously into cooking at home as compared to India. And that was a very interesting development for me. Packaged food also went up, and I think this is a lot to do with pantry loading. There was panic buying in the Western economies as well. Of course, toilet rolls was something which doesn't feature, but that was major. Pet food went up, and the one which came down was beauty and skincare, because people said, look, when I'm not going out, why do I need color cosmetics? Why do I need makeup? So that's the one thing which people kind of said, okay, we can come to that later. What does it mean for India? And, I'm just calling this creative destruction, because I think a lot of the things that we said, we almost sort of believed in earlier, are going to change. And that is going to be the way life is. In that, there is opportunity. So obviously, many business models are going to be destroyed. Many products are going to find they are much less in demand. But equally, there is going to be a big lift up in many products. I think it's also very interesting to see how new business models come in and how innovations are sparked off by all of this change in the consumer. So I'm just calling out a few. So first thing is, I think, very obvious to all of us, which is shopping is just going to move more online. A data point is that when in China, when malls reopened, they saw only 40% of the traffic they used to have earlier. So, malls are definitely not where shopping is going to be happening. It's really going to go online. And when I talk to the e-com guys, they're all getting ready for this. And the interesting thing compared to what they used to do earlier is that earlier the whole focus was on super convenience. How can we compete with a neighborhood kirana store, etc. Now they're saying, look, we're not getting enough delivery staff. So they're shifting the focus from flexibility and convenience to reliability. So that when you order, you know when you're going to get the stuff that you want. And the most interesting development during the lockdown was the whole tie-up between Jio platforms and Facebook. And this is just going to enable neighborhood stores to participate in the whole delivery economy. And I was on a call with the WhatsApp team sometime back, and they're really working at how to make WhatsApp a two-way communication tool. And all of this is just going to help neighborhood stores as well get ready for participating in e-commerce or at least delivery. The second call out that I have at an overall industry level is that trust is going to be important. Earlier, consumers were buying brands that had good propositions. They bought brands which they were familiar with, but I think they're going to challenge some of that and really vote for brands they can trust. They will look for brands which they believe are honest with them. And I have to say that a lot of the brands out there have not been honest. And I think that is something they need to understand. They will look for brands which are proven to be efficacious. So there will be challenging around, are you really doing what you claim to do? Food brands especially, and delivery platforms, etc., are going to have to demonstrate that they really care about hygiene. Will have to share not just practices, but I think also data about their hygiene practices. They just have to, make everything something like an open kitchen. And that's something I think people are going to look for. Word of mouth, social approval ratings are all going to be even more important. Social approval ratings had anyway become important. You wouldn't have bought something on Amazon without checking the ratings. But I think in the world going forward, that's going to be more important. Income reduction and the financial insecurity is going to lead to a search for value. Downtrading is definitely something that many mass brands are anticipating. Equally, I think when things open up for non-essentials, there will be lots of discounts. I already hear of a lot of apparel brands which are full of inventory, but they also know that malls are not going to open, etc., etc. So be ready for discounts and all of that. But even I think many other categories are going to see that there is a search for value, and therefore they're going to look at how they can discount on them. Mass categories will see a drop in penetration. And interestingly, the other twist in this is that people who have secure jobs, salaried people, are going to have more money because they're not going to be spending on holidays, they're not going to be spending on restaurant trips, and therefore they'll be looking for some pampering. So what sort of pampering will be on offer will be interesting. The other thought that I have is there are lots of brands which have built their equity on being out of home, being socially active. Now, how are they going to work out their communication? I mean, can you think of a soft drink brand, especially a fizzy one? Are they going to show everybody wearing masks? How is that going to work? Really, and it's the core of the brand. I mean, and that's going to have to change. Food is going to see a lot of change. I think cooking at home will increase. Products which offer convenience and authentic taste will see an increase. One of our portfolio brands is Tasty Tales, and they are in that space. And once they got e-commerce moving, I think they already seen a strong uptick in demand. Another thing is about immunity. We saw the Google search, and we actually have data again from one of our brands called Kapiva, which is into Ayurveda-based foods, and they're seeing very, very strong demand happening. Though they're saying, look, it's going to take us some weeks to deliver. People are coming and placing orders. People more time at home, so snacking will trend up. I'm sure that all the companies like Nestle who are selling snacking, Frito-Lay, all of them are going to see good uptick in demand. There will be a move away from commodities and local brands to trusted brands, and food delivery is definitely going to increase. Some other sectors, again, open for discussion, I think. I think in personal care, moving away from salons to DIY at home will spur innovation. Hygiene, personal and home care, both will be boosted. And there are going to be a lot of innovations which we're going to see out there. Health. Apart from food, I think there's much more opportunity for supplements. Ayurveda, which we Indians have a strong belief in, is going to trend up. We already hear reports of Dabur Chyawanprash having a great time in what is for Dabur an off-season month. What's going to happen with the clothes area is something going to be interesting, because there are all these memes floating around of people dressed for Zoom calls. And I just wonder what the new dress code is going to be. So these are some of the observations that I had. So happy now to look at questions, look at other observations on this.
I think Sunil Tolani has a question. So Sunil, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Wish you all a very, very good afternoon. Thank you, Kanan. I think great insights. Thank you, Turab, for this opportunity. I had a question around home shopping channels, Kanan. Are you seeing traction? The home shopping channel which appear on television and stuff like that. Are you seeing traction there? Because you mentioned about shopping from home, etc. Are you seeing traction in these kind of alternate channels too? Number one. Number two, sorry, I'm being a little greedy, but number two, quickly, what is your assessment on electric consumer durables, not ACs, etc., but the more non-discretionary like appliances, mixer, grinders, fans, etc.? Do you have any assessment or view on that? Thank you.
So, Sunil, on the first one, really I have no insights on home shopping channels. It has not actually popped up in any of my conversations. And I think it's a lot to do with the fact that, the whole courier system had just closed down. And it's only in the last week or so that people like Delivery and others have started getting active again, and they're already delivering non-essentials to the orange and green zones. And even they are facing still a staffing issue and things of that kind. So I don't really have a view on this. I think there've been a lot about what I may call discretionary items, not really about the less essential items. What the government calls non-essential, I prefer to call less essential, right? So my honest view, and to be candid, I have not really thought about this, is that I do not think it will change very much, right? On the other one, the durables piece, I think there are many durables which are going to see a big increase in demand. Because, as I said, lots more things are going to be done from home, at home. So I think things like dishwashers, a whole sort of kitchen appliances, are just dryers for clothes. I think you're going to see a big uptick in demand.
Thank you. Thank you, Kanan.
Yeah, there's a question from Santosh Varchuri. Can Santosh please unmute himself? I think Santosh is not there.
Okay, can I deal with that when I can see it on my screen?
Yeah.
I think that's the one about how much productization of brands hit on gross margins do you expect due to creative destruction despite the need for trust? Are we going to get commoditized is, I guess, the question, right?
Yeah.
The view that I'm hearing, in fact, it's an interesting one because we've also been hearing about how a lot of the retailers, especially the e-com guys, have been gaining traction on their private labels. Yeah, they've all seen that the share of private labels has increased during this lockdown period. Now, I actually asked Hari Menon this question that, during a panic buying time, obviously people have not really bothered too much about the brand. There is a scarcity mindset, so you're buying whatever you can get. Right? If you want a snacking item, if you don't get Haldiram's, I'll buy some other guys, right? So I'm first in the category, then into the brand, and that's always the way behavior is. But once we get over the supply chain hurdles, and we will, it may take a month, but I think things are already started recovering. So supply chain stuff is going to be something which is a bad memory going, I think, in a month from now. the brands will come back. And the brands will come back because most of them were built on solid propositions. They made good products, gave good pricing, and there was a huge element of trust for those brands. Obviously, there will be challenges, and you need to make sure that you're not sort of resting on your laurels. So you may need to revisit the basics of your brand and make sure they are strong. I think brands will be stronger.
Sitaram, I have a question. In our previous sessions, number of speakers talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning, etc., going to become very, very critical in the next post-COVID era. Now, how do you think FMCG companies, especially the small and medium-sized companies, do you think they will be able to use it, or it's going to be restricted only to the large FMCG companies?
We are already starting to see startups in the consumer world. I'm not talking only about FMCG, but in the consumer world, starting to use some forms of AI. Right. For example, we're starting to see AI being used to get inputs like photographs, right? To think of what kind of products would work for this person, right? We're starting to use AI to look at how to target consumers on the social media platforms, right? So there is that already coming in. It's no longer just about the big companies.
Okay. There's a question from Aditya Jha. You can just scroll down and take his question.
Yes, local manufacturers are doing extremely well, earning massive profits, and consumers are purchasing local products. What's the way forward for brands to increase loyalty, equity, and affinity amongst consumers? I think I dealt with this a little bit earlier, which is that the fact is that there may be some great local brands, and in every state, every city, you do find brands that people are very loyal to. I mean, you see it possibly most commonly in tea, that almost every city would have a local brand of tea, right? So I'm not in any way saying that it's the end of local brands and so on. But we're talking about local brands which suddenly made a step jump in share during the scarcity period. And I think that was purely filling in a category vacuum. As I said, brands were there for good reason, good brands. And there is no absence of competition in this country. All brands have been through challenges. All brands had to justify their product quality, had to justify their the pricing that they charge, the margins that they give to retailers and so on. So they will come back. I think those values are intact.
Right. So any more questions?
I have one question, if I can be permitted again.
Sure.
Thank you. Kanan, you mentioned about, so there's a bit of contrast, and you also spoke about the Airbnb letter. So this entire sense of belonging, which is going to be taken away because we are no longer going to go to crowded places, at least that's what seems to be, or we are not going to experience that kind of proximity and the warmth, So how do you think this is going to impact, let's say, building blocks like a distribution strategy, consumer insighting? Are there going to be new products that will come out which will fulfill the sense of belonging? Number one. Number two, are distribution strategies or distribution models going to change? One is, of course, digital, so that's obvious. But is there going to be like at the home models, vans coming to your places? We had ICICI Bank bringing their ATM to our place, right? So do you see a lot of things happening in physical products, again, consumer durables, etc.? And the second is, do you see some white spaces coming up where the sense of belonging is now going to get fulfilled through some alternative options?
So let's talk about consumer inciting. So the traditional consumer inciting thing was going to meet consumers face-to-face, preferably talking to them, sitting across them, and chatting with them either in a group or individually, trying to get data from that. Interestingly, trying to get consumer insights online. There are models which are doing that already. Because the traditional consumer inciting methods were, one, quite expensive, and two, they took time. And in the startup worlds, both those are not desirable. So what people have been experimenting with, and I think there are some good models today, is to look at how we can go on site, figure out who are buyers of different brands, what their purchasing behavior has been like, and therefore able to select a consumer profile that you want to understand more about. You actually have data about their shopping behavior for maybe the last few months and so on. And then, address questions to them, right? So that, I think, on the consumer inciting piece. On the distribution piece, yes, I already see different forms of experimentation going on. So one is certainly direct to RWAs. This is definitely happening. So different sorts of ways in which collaboration is going on. For example, ID, which is a big in the South, branded dosa batter company, which also sells a whole lot of other things. So PC Mustafa told me that they're actually now getting orders directly from RWAs. RWAs are clubbing orders, and these guys are supplying it direct to RWAs. Yeah, there was a conversation that I had with a startup, and she told me that they are looking at again direct to RWAs collaboration across a bunch of brands. So I talked about collaboration earlier. So people are saying, look, we all got similar problems, which is accessing the consumer. How do we, get that together? So certainly that's happening. But I think the traditional form of distribution is not broken by any means. It is disrupted for the time being, right? So what's been happening is, again, the way it is look like changing is the traditional method for those who are not from the FMCG business is for a sales rep to go retail outlet by retail outlet, book orders. And the one thing we changed from my days as a sales manager to today is the guy now has a device on which he can enter data on the orders, right? That's pretty much all the change which happened. But going forward, I think what's already happening is telecalling, right? And I think there are apps out there which some people have put in place. The retailer has got apps through which you can order. And I think what's missing is a CRM to hold all this together, right? And I think now distributors are going to have those kind of interfaces so that when somebody is telecalling, they know everything about that retailer. And they know similarly when the rep is going, he knows what has happened between his last call and the present call. So I think it is improving by step jumps over the next few months.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. See, this whole piece regarding work from home and people not going out for holidays and entertainment is going to be something which is obviously going to catch up. So, what's your view on spend for home connectivity, remote connectivity, and any future solutions or innovations that may come up for home entertainment and being able to enjoy with the family at home?
I'm not really sure, Rajiv. Not really in that space. But, there's been huge technology jumps in virtual reality and so on. So I wonder, anybody else in the group out here who have got thoughts, knowledge about this space?
So I'll just, elaborate the context of my question. Is that, obviously all of us are working from home and we find there are huge challenges which people are having based on the kind of device that they have for connecting remotely or the kind of bandwidth that they have for connecting remotely. And I'm sure that a lot of these things will get addressed once the shutdown opens. So do you see a kind of a huge, upsurge in demand for remote connectivity solutions, laptops, home devices, etc.?
I'm sure. And I think there'll be a huge innovation coming from all the device makers because, the fact is that while it's sufficed, I'm sure that those people can imagine all kinds of new ways to experience remote connectivity, right? That today we can't have. I mean, I may want to share designs, I may want to share products, I may want to share so many things in a call, which I just feel that today what we have does not really allow us to get that richness of actually touch and feel. And I'm sure Turab, running an ad agency, must be wondering, how can I share creatives on a screen? It always used to be about the creative guys standing up and telling a story, showing pictures, lots of show and tell. And somehow, looking into a screen, show and tell doesn't quite come to life.
Sitaram, is actually quite the opposite.
All right.
Since the lockdown, we have made presentations on our system. So a client in Jaipur with his partner in Delhi and we in Hyderabad, we made these presentations and it went off really well. And there was no feeling that we were not together. And it was very efficient in the sense that no small chat, no travel cost, no standing up and making a show out of it, nothing like that. It was very, very professional. That's number one. Number two, regarding this laptops and connectivity instruments, I know that a number of laptop manufacturers have approached the government of India to make laptops an essential commodity. So that is the type of importance a laptop or any connectivity tool is going to have, that they want to make it into an essential commodity.
Yeah.
I have a small question. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
We are delivering now at home these Swiggy, Zomato, and all those people. Now, vis-a-vis, I read the news some days back that the manufacturers themselves want to have good direct delivery. So, is that going to be more cost-effective, more quality-effective to take directly from those people?
I think faced with huge disruptions in supplies, people have tried all kinds of different things. But the fact is that over time, some are going to be more effective, both from a fulfillment perspective and from a cost perspective. And I seriously think that for a large FMCG company to want to directly reach consumers in their homes, one, it is not their core, what they do best, right? Second, it's going to be very expensive. And they would much rather partner with people who do it as their core. So, of course, an Amazon, a Flipkart, a Big Basket, a Nykaa, right? A First Cry. Of course, all of them are there. There are also new players coming into those whole field. We have seen Swiggy doing home delivery of FMCG stuff, or Dunzo doing that, right? What's going to be interesting is what new categories get into the home delivery space. I don't know if you guys have been following what's happening with alcohol. One, of course, the long lines and the record numbers that the state governments are drooling over. But there is a huge push to get home delivery going. As of yesterday, my understanding is 3 states have allowed home delivery: Punjab, West Bengal, and Chhattisgarh. And more states are saying, hey, why don't we do this? Because for them, it sort of aligns everybody, because about 25-30% of alcohol consumption happens on premise in restaurants, pubs, and so on. And that's gone, right? The second piece is that there is COVID cesses being levied. I mean, Delhi is 70%. So the alcohol companies are saying, oh my God, my volumes are gone for a 6. how do I get something back? Right? So all of that is coming together and saying, okay, what's wrong with home delivery of alcohol? So I think those new categories will come in, and the alcohol companies won't want to do home delivery themselves, but they will say, okay, let's partner with the alcohol shops and a Dunzo or a Swiggy to get this going.
Sitaram, I have a very interesting question from Karan, and since it is related to advertising, I'll ask you, what is the change in corporate strategy that you expect with respect to advertising and sales promotion activities during the next few months? This is close to my heart, so please go ahead.
So I think the first thing is I divide the world very simplistically into big companies and small companies. I used to be big company, now I'm small company. Where I come from now, which is a small company world, e-commerce, digital marketing are life and death, right? So our companies have to be good at it. Certainly, they're all looking to see how to be better at it and all of that, but they need to be good at it. For the big companies, it is not essential so far. It was a good thing to do because somebody from an overseas business would come in and say, hey, what are you guys doing on Amazon? And you need to say that. And really a fairly small percentage of the business was coming from the e-commerce players. But I think now the big companies have realized that that has changed, that a significantly higher percentage of business is going to come from e-commerce. So they need to be much, much better at marketing through the e-commerce channels. They need to be much better at marketing on the Amazon platform, on the Flipkart platform. Second is, many of them did not have a D2C channel. You can go onto your website, order, and it gets delivered. That is not true for our company. Every one of them is doing D2C, right? So now they're saying that, look, we need a direct access to consumers as well. And earlier they would perhaps not have given much attention to D2C, or they had either no D2C or small ones. They're all activating that, which means they need to do what's called performance marketing, which means that I go on to Google, I go on to Facebook, whatever searches are going on there, I grab hold of those consumers, get them to my website, and get them to buy from me. So I think that's going to change a lot of how they market and engage with consumers. The holy grail of a big company, which was a 30-second TVC, will continue to be a holy grail, but perhaps a little less holy.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Turab, it's more related to you. It's related to you, Turab.
Okay.
Sitaram, it's about Ramayana and Mahabharata these days. It's become spectacularly successful. Do you agree with me, Turab?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So now, which means that what we initially thought that it was only meant for the old age, but then it has completely changed the whole thing. So similarly, there must be some latent products or latent ideas, service ideas or whatever that are probably hidden and are wanting to come out.
So Turab, over to you, I think.
So you want me to answer that?
Yeah, and then Saitaram as well.
Well, I'm sure that there will be some ideas. In case anybody knows them, please tell me, because I would love to make money on that. I don't know anything right now, but I'm sure there would be. But look at it this way: that the most common idea, what Sitaram has been talking about, is brands will be sold on the basis of trust. Trust is an old idea. It's not something which is very new. We have been talking about trust every time. It was hidden somewhere behind all those glamour things. So that's a latent idea which I think will work very well for all products. Why only FMCGs? Even services or even finance. Everywhere trust will be very critical. Sitaram, any comments on that?
Honestly, the only thing that I've seen which is sort of coming back had started coming back with Patanjali is Ayurveda. I think people are respect Ayurveda because it is not aggressive, and people and I think Patanjali and Baba Ramdev gave credibility to Ayurveda, and I think a lot more of reliance on not just Ayurveda, but I think what somewhere we lost a connect to it, which is our traditional foods will come back. I think in the search for variety, we went after lots of interesting stuff coming from around the world. But I think there is so much of good stuff in our traditional food cultures. And I think all of that will come back in more convenient forms. We've already seen things like millets coming back before this happened. I think more such things will come back. I think food is where I see a lot of this really coming back.
Turab, may I add something? Pushkal here.
Sure, please.
So, Turab, my understanding is these serials like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Sri Krishna, these are no doubt these are taking much of the channel space. But it's we need to know who are the consumers, because like at one hand these kind of serials, they are taking space. At the same time, the internet consumption has also increased like anything. So what I understand is there are two different set of consumers basically. One are on social media platform mostly those are young, maybe the young generation people, and second is maybe mid-aged and aged people who are more into DD channel. So this is something which my understanding.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I see a question here from my very good friend Vikram Roy, which I must answer. He's asking, will eco-friendliness become a significant factor in consumer choice? Actually, Vikram, I suspect that whatever was developing in the eco-friendliness area might start taking a bit of a backseat for the time being. My concern here is coming from the fact that what is taking priority is things like convenience. What is taking priority is about personal safety, etc. So we're all happy to see all the animals and birds wandering around where we used to wander, but I don't think it's going to reflect in our behavior. I think we'll do whatever it takes to make our life a little easier, a little healthier, to get a little bit more pampering at home for those who can afford it, etc. And so eco-friendliness will, I think, take a backseat for some more time. It's a worry that I have.
In all categories of products, services?
No, I don't really have a category point of view, but I think certainly at an aggregate level, I think there is that concern which is there. Yes, Neeraj.
Sita sir, what's been the impact, if any, on the valuation of your digital brand investments, and has this overall environment made you go more bullish, more bearish, or no change as far as your investments are concerned?
So the honest truth is we haven't done any investments for the last couple of months. Not because we didn't want to, but we didn't have anything we really liked. But we have got a few in the pipeline, in which we are in active engagement with, right? So the first point I want to make is that we are not slowing down our investments. We still believe that the thesis that we set out with is very strong. Consumers will continue to want different things, and I think the post-COVID world is going to release a whole lot of innovation and a whole lot of fresh insights. Lots more product solutions, service solutions are going to come. So it's a great time to be investing. The second piece about valuations. First, as Fireside, we never gave over-the-top valuations. we have always been, what we believe is sensible. You might have your own view of what is sensible, but and therefore we believe that we want to work with companies which want to work with us. And there have been many companies who have given up more expensive valuations they could have got in order to be working with us. So that's our view. Going forward, I think in the immediate future, at least the FMCG and consumer space, we're not seeing the froth that was perhaps there in the tech space, right? So therefore, nor do we see a huge moderation of valuation. I think both in the consumer space, both VCs and private equity players have been solidly focused on the core business model. I've always looked at unit economics. I've always looked at a path to profitability. And I think those have been our guiding principles and will continue to be that. So frankly, nothing changes from that perspective. So there may be a little bit of froth which will disappear, but I don't think valuations were anything out of the ordinary. To your third comment around digital, we were always fond of digital first brands. We didn't make it a filter, but we were fond of them. Several reasons. I think the whole digital ecosystem had evolved quite substantially pre-COVID. Both, and I mean both the ability to create demand and the ability to supply demand. On the one hand, you had internet, Facebook, Google reaching deeper and deeper into India. They're talking about some 400 million or 500 million internet users today, right? And you got everybody doing Indian languages, Facebook Indian languages, Google Indian languages. You got a TikTok going out there. You got Hotstar, right? So that means you can create demand at in different town classes. It's not just a big town phenomenon. And the ability to supply demand. So the courier guys, so for example, Delhivery, which is one of the leading logistics providers for D2C brands, delivers in about 17,000 pin codes around the country. Yeah? And they're back there actually post-COVID. Or as of today, they are supplying to about 17,000 pin codes. Amazon, Flipkart, all of them are deepening their reach into small towns. So therefore, it's very efficient for young brands to use the digital ecosystem. And therefore, in terms of cash burn and the ability to scale up, we think those brands are advantaged. And that's why we prefer them. And I think that preference will increase with some of what we are seeing today. I must also say, we invest in a very traditional sales and distribution business. Yeah. A company which was taking a bunch of FMCG brands, supplying to retail outlets. And they've done extraordinarily well in April because they got running very quickly. And we therefore think an organized, professionally run distributor is actually going to get a lot of business. We already seen just in the course of April, them signing up 2 fairly well-known brands and having more conversations actually. So there is going to be consolidation happening in the traditional FMCG distributor ecosystem, because that was just waiting to happen. There was so much lack of professionalism and lack of openness out there. I think that's just getting disrupted.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, Mr. Tiger.
Sir, good morning, and thank you so much, sir. So I think first of all, thanksgiving for a great insight. So we're talking about the industry, changes which is going to happen post COVID, and in fact currently going on. So we're talking about the flexibility, convenience to reliability, and also the financial insecurity, which is going to affect a lot, sir. So we are talking about the consumer behavior. We're talking about the new products. We're talking about the diversification of certain companies from one product to the sanitization as well. So on the other hand, I just want to ask, what is the future of the professionals who are going to work? And because we're not talking about you told about that there is a loss of job in the white collar sector as well in India as well, which is going to go long. So what is your advice? Because earlier people just company used to focus on the people management as well. So now they are just telling the people to go because of the current scenario. So what do you suggest? What's your suggestion and feedback on these things, that how professional has to work, and what is the advice from your side to the company that follow the professional as well, sir?
Well, I think this whole thing of cradle to grave kind of jobs disappeared a long time back. That was a sort of theory when I started working, but that disappeared many years back. So you had to be good at your role. Equally, your role had to be necessary to a company. And no company is going to. So companies are actually taking at least the large companies who got money in the bank are taking a graded call on all of this, a calibrated call on this. They're not kind of saying that we're just going to lay off people tomorrow. They're telling people, look, at this point in time, for the next month, next 2 months, next 3 months, we are guaranteeing a paycheck, right? What they're saying is, look, we know our business is affected. All of you, all of us are working to bring back our business, right? But let's say 3 months later, we think it's going to take a year more to get our business back to where it is. Then we owe it to our shareholders to also say, look, we have got to lay off people. And when we lay off people, we will do it with a gentle hand, right? I think that is their commitment to people. Okay, and I mean, you should get hold of the Airbnb.
Hello.
The Airbnb letter. You should get hold of the letter written by the founders of CureFit, right? And they're talking about the kind of terms at which they're letting go of people. It's not like just saying, sorry, man, tomorrow, no paycheck, right? So I think those are behaving very responsibly. And I think that's about as good as we can expect from people. So that's, I think, those who got funding in the bank, they're kind of saying, how can we be responsible employers? We are a business which is going to survive. We will need to employ people tomorrow. So we need to be a good employer brand. We need people to understand why we're letting go of people. It doesn't feel like a vicious kind of an approach. There are lots of other companies out there which are going to actually, close down. They are facing extinction. There are hundreds and thousands of companies which are running out of money. And there they have to survive. And they are going to lay off people pronto. Right? And that is just about sheer survival. And again, the companies out there, the people are going to know that's how it is going to be. And really, it's about saying if we can survive, maybe we'll again get back, we'll again be able to recruit and things of that kind. So I think it's not whimsical. It's about really saying, look, what's appropriate for our business, for all the stakeholders in the business at this point in time.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Karan sir,
I have a question for you.
Rob, we can't hear you. You're on mute, I think.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Ruturaj, sir. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sir, I actually had a question on similar lines on FMCG sector. Now, as we know that the supply chain has been disrupted, right? And due to the unavailability of branded products, some consumers have been consuming some local brands. Say you couldn't get the atta from say ITC at the moment. Is it okay if I take brand names, or should I avoid?
Ask.
No, I think you can go ahead. What is that? This is not a.
That's fine, right? Okay. So I was just taking an example. Say you've been using atta from Ashirwad atta from ITC, and due to this supply chain disruption, you couldn't get that atta. Now you have started consuming a local atta, which has been made at which has been packed by some local dealer. Now, after using this, you seem to find that you understand that the quality of this local atta is okay, and you can use it in the future. I mean, you're okay with it. So, would this change the consumer behavior in the long run? I mean, after this crisis gets over, would this permanently, or to some extent, would affect the consumer behavior from a global brand to say some local brand? What are your views on that, sir?
Obviously, people will discover things, Ruturaj. the thing is, a thing like this shakes lots of habits. I see lots of guys on Zoom calls now who are growing beards, right?
Oh.
So, they never thought of growing beards before, but then suddenly they say, okay, this is a time to do it. And they're growing beards and somebody says, hey, you're looking good or something. So they might say, chalo, I'll keep it, right? So when something so disruptive happens, there is a whole discovery process. And suddenly you find new brands, new categories, things which you never would have considered earlier. And then you're likely to stay with it.
I think Sitaram and everybody else, we have far exceeded our time of about an hour or so. So may I request, first of all, on my behalf, Sitaram, great session. Thank you very much. And Manupriya, if she's around, can you please propose a vote of thanks?
Sure. Mr. Sitaram, on behalf of Tempest Advertising, we would like to extend hearty thanks to you for such an informative session. We've really enjoyed the session and for taking on so many questions also at the same time. Also, thank you to all the participants here to spend the morning today with us. It was really nice having you over.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll also be sharing a recording of the presentation with you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.